here today to tell you a bit about what it was like to work as a doffer in a flax spinning mill at a time in history when we were famous all over the world for our linen. This is a story about a typical day in my life as a doffer, also known as a spinner. My name's Ethel McGladdery and I worked in one of the big mills in Belfast. I went there when I was 14 and one of my aunties spoke for me. You had to get someone who worked there to put a word in for you. You couldn't just turn up and ask for a job. You had to know someone. I left school on the Friday and started working the mill on the Monday. And I was there for the rest of my working life. So I'm going to start off with a song, and if you know it, sure join in. You will easy know a doffer when she comes into town, with her long yellow hair and her picker hanging down, with her apron tied before her and a scraper in her hand. You'll easy know a doffer, for she'll always get her man. Oh, she'll always get her man, she'll always get her man. You'll easy know a doffer, for she'll always get her man. First thing you heard at 5:30 in the morning was the screeching of horns. And sometimes I'd just be lying awake waiting for them to start. It wasn't just one horn, it was all the horns in Belfast, or so it seemed. And if that didn't waken you, you must have been hard of hearing. Mind you, a lot of us were, due to the damage done to our ears by the loud machinery we were working with, day in, day out. It was hard enough getting out of your bed at that hour. And in the winter, there'd be icicles in the inside of the windows. But you knew you had to get up and get out. If the horn didn't wake you, there was always the rapper-upper. There was usually one for every few streets. And they'd come round rapping the front door or one of the windows with a big stick until they heard someone in the house shouting that they were up. So you rushed to get to the mill gates, and if you weren't in time, you got locked out, you lost a day's pay, depending on who the gatekeeper was and what they were like. But usually, once that gate was shut, you could plead all day and they still wouldn't let you in. Just because we worked in the mill didn't mean we weren't smartly dressed. We were very tidy going about our work. Most of us wore a skirt, a bit like this one, and it was called a Newtonards strip petticoat because the material was made in a factory in Newtonards in County Down, and it was striped with different colours. We also wore a blouse, which we called a jumper. There was a factory shop near our mill. It sold linen and other remnants of material, so we were able to make our own clothes. And sometimes we bought second-hand things. Didn't really matter, as long as you got the look you wanted. It was a kind of a costume we all wore, but it was practical and we were always clean and well turned out. It could be a bit competitive too with the younger ones, trying to outdo each other in the style stakes. At first we wore aprons made from cotton flour sacks. Then later on we got rubber ones to protect our clothes when we were doing the wet spinning. These were called glazers, and you tied your hair back or you covered it. I heard of one girl got her hair caught in the machinery and took her scalp clean off. Don't know what happened to her after that, because that's all I heard. Accidents were usually hushed up and the other workers kept quiet for fear of being seen as troublemakers and losing their jobs. A lot of us didn't own a pair of shoes, and when I was young I had to go about in my bare feet. I used to get great big hacks on the soles of my feet, and my father, he put cobbler's wax on them. It was really thick, greasy stuff. "It'll keep the dirt out," he said, and it must have, because I never got the gangrene and I've still got both my feet. Usually I'd have a baked potato from last night's dinner to take with me for lunch, and I'd wrap it in a bit of cloth and tuck it inside my shawl. Other times I'd just make a piece and take that with me. A piece was just a bit of bread and dripping, or if you were lucky, a bit of butter and jam. If I did have a baked potato, it kept me warm on the way to the mill, and when I got there, I could put it on top of one of the boilers, and that would keep it warm until lunchtime. For outdoors, I had a good thick shawl like this one. Your shawl was sometimes called a cloud because you could use it for covering someone up, or even sometimes wrapping a baby in. I had 2 wee sisters, and they had one shawl between them. Well, it wasn't really a shawl. It was just a square piece of cloth cut in two triangles. I had a brother too, but he didn't work in the mill. Oh, he was cute. He knew better. He worked for a pig trader in St. George's Market, and it was his job to scrub the pigs until they were good and pink and healthy looking. And then the owner got a far better price for them. My brother was the type. He was always having a good laugh and being cheerful. He could charm the birds off the trees, so he could. When I started at the mill, I thought I was great, and I felt all grown up. The older women used to play pranks on us new ones. On my first day, they sent me to the drying room with a bucket and told me to ask for a bucket of steam. So, there's me standing wondering what was so funny and why they were all laughing at me. "Ach, love, they're taking the hand out of you," this woman said to me. It only happened to once, and then they left you alone. New starts were always getting pranks played on them. I heard of one's been sent for things like a long weight, or a left-handed screwdriver, or a cloth hammer. Ach, sure, it was all a bit of fun. Nothing could have prepared you for what it was like in those spinning rooms. You'd be in a huge room filled with these big, powerful machines that were hammering and banging away all day long. And the noise was like thunder in your head. And the heat was powerful. It was our job to make sure the machines kept going and to fill as many of the big wooden bobbins with yarn as we were able to. We'd load the empty bobbins onto the machine while it was stopped, and the doffing mistress, she'd blow a whistle for it to start all over again. So there was us doffers winding and changing the bobbins all day long, and if you were lucky, you had a doffing mistress you liked. One that was strict but fair and would always look out for you. One that made sure you didn't have to have too many dealings with the boss. We called him the Hat, and he was in charge of the whole room. And he could make your life a misery if he took against you. This is another song we sang. "Oh, do you know her or do you not? This new doffing mistress that we have got. Elsie Thompson is her name, and she helps her doffers at every frame. Fally-right-fo-ree, fally-right-fo-ra. On Monday morning when she walks in, she hangs her coat on the highest pin, turns around to greet her friends, saying, 'Hi, duffers, tie up your ends. Fally-right-fo-ree, fally-right-fo-ra.' Sometimes the boss, he looks in the door. 'Tie up your ends, duffers,' he will roar. 'Tie up our ends we surely do, for Elsie Thompson, but not for you. Fally-right-fo-ree, fally-right-fo-ra.' Your frame was the part of the machine you were responsible for, and tying up your ends is what you did to join any broken threads. There were lots of words and phrases that we used, and they wouldn't have meant anything to anybody who'd never worked in the mill. We made up our own sign language too, because most of the time you couldn't hear yourself talk for the noise. For example, if the boss wasn't in the room and we were having a carry-on, somebody close to the door would pat their head like this, meaning the hat's coming back, and we'd all pass it along right through the room. The sign language was handy to use outside the mill when you didn't want other people to know what you were talking about. You could have a whole secret conversation with your friends. We always looked forward to lunchtime after a long, hard morning, and we knew then the day was half over. Sometimes during our lunch break we'd sit and sing, and it was lovely just to be in the quiet. This song was like a lullaby, sometimes nearly sent us all off to sleep. Mellow the moonlight to shine is beginning. Close by the window young Eileen is spinning. Bent o'er the fire her blind grandmother sitting, crooning and moaning and drowsily knitting. Merrily, cheerily, noiselessly whirring, spins the wheel, rings the wheel, while the foot's stirring, sprightly and lightly and merrily ringing, sounds the sweet voice of a young maiden singing. After lunch, it was back to work. The afternoons were when the half-timers arrived. They were the children who spent half their day at school and the other half working in the mill. Downstairs on the ground floor is where the hacklers were. The hacklers were all men and boys, no women, and their job was to comb out the raw flax and get it ready for the spinning. They thought they were a cut above most people in the mill, especially us doffers. Because of the nature of what they did, there was dust, also known as puss, everywhere, and it settled in their hair. So they used to wear these wee paper hats made from the Belfast Telegraph, and they were shaped like a bag of sweeties. That reminds me of another wee song. My Aunt Jane, she called me in, she gave me tea out of her wee tin, half a bap, sugar and top, 3 black lumps out of her wee shop, half a bap, sugar and top, 3 black lumps out of her wee shop. So the hacklers hackled and we sang. Our songs were all made up out of our own heads, which is more than you could say for those weavers. They didn't have songs of their own, so they pinched ours and they changed the words. They also thought they were better than us, because they didn't do dirty work, and they thought they had special skills. They called us the roughs. We worked in the mill, they worked in the factory. We wore shawls, they wore coats. We called our toilet the wee house. They called theirs the parliament. So I made up this wee song about them. You will easy know a weaver when she comes into town, whether I'll tatty her and her stockings hanging down, whether apron tied before her and her scissors in her hand. You'll easy know a weaver, for she'll never get a man. Oh, she'll never get a man, she'll never get a man. You'll easy know a weaver, for she'll never get a man. There was nothing like the sound of silence when the machine stopped at home time, when your work was done for the day. We had these foot baths, like big kitchen sinks. They were at the far end of the room on the floor. And we were supposed to wash our feet in them, you know, to get rid of the chemicals from the water we'd been standing in all day. Hardly any of us used them. There were only 2 of them, and we weren't going to waste our time queuing up. There was a spiral staircase in our mill, and we'd fly down those stairs sometimes 2 or 3 at a time, just to get outside and into the fresh air. Then we'd link arms in a big row, and we'd sing at the top of our voices the whole way down the road. I'll tell my ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pulled my hair, they stole my comb, that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. She is a courting 1, 2, 3, please won't you tell me who is he? So that was my day as a doffer. We didn't really know any different or any better. It was our lot. We didn't question it. Things were hard. I mean, really hard. But we had each other with great companionship. And that's what I remember the most. Then the people didn't want the linen so much. Then they didn't want it at all. So the mill started to close down. And it really didn't take very long for everything to be gone. All that industry and life and fearless spirit, all gone. At the east end of town, at the foot of the hill, there's a building so high, it's called Belfast Mill. But there's no smoke at all coming out of the stack, for the mill has shut down, it's never coming back. And the only tune I hear is the sound of the wind as it blows through the town, weave and spin, weave and spin. Now the mill has shut down, there's no work to do. Tell me, where will I go? What will I do? I'm too old to work and I'm too young to die. Tell me, what will we do, my family and I? And the only tune I hear is the sound of the wind as it blows through the town, weave and spin, weave and spin, weave and spin, weave and spin. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed my story. It's been lovely to spend time with you, and hopefully someday soon I'll be able to visit and meet you all in person. So I'm going to leave you with the same song we started with, so please sing along. You will easy know a doffer when she comes into town, with her long yellow hair and her picker hanging down, with her apron tied before her and a scraper in her hand. You'll easy know a doffer, for she'll always get her man. Oh, she'll always get her man, she'll always get her man. You'll easy know a doffer, for she'll always get her man.